here is this was Gaza in the last 24 hours. This is Jabalia in northern Gaza. You know, I won't be showing any close-up images of just, for example, the 80 children that Israel slaughtered in less than an hour when it broke the ceasefire and killed over 400 people in one night. This was just in the last few hours. An entire city block in Jabalia refugee camp, already mostly destroyed, was destroyed by Israel. What else did Israel do today? It blew up the only cancer hospital. This was in the Netzarim corridor that Israel is reoccupying by land.
Bam! That's it.
Just a titanic war crime, just blowing up a hospital for the sake of blowing up a hospital. This is the only cancer hospital. It served 10,000 people. And they're bringing troops back into the Netzarim corridor to cut northern Gaza off from the rest of the strip, as no food is allowed in, electricity's been cut off, all with a green light from the U.S. Aaron, what's going on here politically?
On the issue of the hospitals, I'm just going to repeat myself. I've made this point before, on top of just how just sadistic this is, sadistic beyond words. When you think about the hospital system in Gaza, it's something that people in Gaza are very proud of, understandably, because under inhumane conditions that existed long before October 7th, a medieval blockade that was in place for 2 decades, people of Gaza built up a really impressive healthcare system that treated everybody, that functioned, that produced a lot of world-class doctors that they were very proud of. And so in Israel's campaign against Gaza's hospitals, they're destroying, obviously, the basics that a society needs to function, which is textbook genocide. And they're crushing what was just also the pride of so many people. And that, I think, sustained hope for people, because the fact that they were able to maintain a medical system under these inhumane conditions gave people hope for the future. And so physically now, they're not only taking away this vital infrastructure like a cancer hospital, but they're also taking away what is left of people's hope for a society there. And it's deliberate. They're doing this deliberately. We're dealing with the world's most evil people who do not want a society to be there anymore inside of Gaza.
Well, speaking of the world's most evil people, here's the new defense minister Netanyahu has installed, because the last one, Yoav Gallant, who is accused by the ICC of war crimes, wasn't loyal enough to his political agenda. And Israel Katz is essentially calling for I mean, look at this guy. He looks like something out of Godfather 2. He looks like one of the old, like, washed up early Vegas gangsters. This is a message to the residents of Gaza. He's not talking about Hamas. He's talking about the residents of Gaza. The first Sinwar destroyed Gaza, and the second Sinwar will bring its complete ruin. Soon the evacuation of the population from combat zones will resume, and what follows will be more severe. You will pay the full price. He's telling the residents of Gaza, return the hostages and remove Hamas, or the alternative is total devastation. So they're just going to kill the residents. They've been doing that until the residents hand over the rest of the hostages without Israel having to extract a political or pay a political price itself, or release any Palestinian prisoners, including Palestinians held in administrative detention without charges. Israel, this is what's going on. And I think, like, everybody knows it who's watching this pretty much. You know what? I don't even need to say it. I'll turn to someone who, has much more credibility than me in Washington, who is a former Israeli army reservist, who's now like the top Israeli cipher for Israeli government officials in the Beltway media, Barak Ravid. The ceasefire did not collapse, Barak Ravid says. It was collapsed by the Israeli government. The Israeli government never intended to fully implement the ceasefire agreement signed 2 months ago. It violated one of its key provisions, reneged on it, and tried to force an alternative arrangement on Hamas. What does he mean by that? I don't know if you want to explain, Aaron, or I can present my own view of what I think is happening here.
Well, there was a clear sequence for the ceasefire. Phase one was in effect, in which some hostages were supposed to be released, and they were. Hamas lived up to that. Then there was supposed to be a second phase, which was to finalize the rest of the remaining releases, but also lead to Israel's permanent withdrawal from Gaza, and of course, letting in even more aid than it had been allowing before. And Netanyahu simply did not want to go to that, because he goes to that, then this conflict, at least this phase of the conflict, ends and his political career is over. I mean, that's my concise take on it.
Yeah, I mean, he had Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, who has immense power within his coalition, very narrow coalition, to destroy it if Netanyahu ended the war. And so he's basically saying, you have to keep the war going or you're toast. And on the day that Netanyahu resumed the war with this slaughter fest, piles of dead children all over the Gaza Strip, he was scheduled to testify before an Israeli court in one of his corruption trials. That was canceled as a result of the resumption of the war. And Netanyahu got another bonus. He got Itamar Ben-Gvir, the biggest fascist in Israeli politics, to re-enter the coalition because he had killed so many kids. It's the Dead Kids Coalition. Not that the other side or the opposition is any more is opposed to it, but there is real pressure from the streets in Israeli society, from the families of the captives and former captives and their supporters, to make a deal. And he's doomed the hostages or the captives. He's doomed them. 2 reportedly were killed in the Israeli attacks on the first night. So this is all for the political benefit of Netanyahu. As Aaron explained, the phases of the ceasefire were sequenced and the date had passed during which phase 2 was supposed to be enacted. Why can't phase 2 be enacted? Because it requires the removal of Israeli troops and more exchanges. They can't allow that. They need the war to continue. So the U.S. administration, Steve Witkoff and company, started presenting all of these offers to Hamas that were basically the Israeli offers. They became Israel's lawyer and said, oh, we'll give you a 50-day extension. We'll give you all these extensions of phase 1. But Hamas understood this means the war can just continue after 50 days and we'll lose our one piece of leverage, which is Israeli captives, and we won't be able to get anything we want. So it got to an impasse where Hamas demanded that the deal that they agreed to be followed, and Israel's now trying to kill as many people as possible to bend Hamas's will. And they're targeting not, high-level Hamas commanders. Who they're targeting? Municipal workers, people who keep things running to make life, as Aaron said, unbearable. It's the greatest war crime of our times. It's a historically titanic war crime.